Welcome to UOW Malaysia KDU's Jingle Mingle of 2021, brought to you by the School of Computing and Creative Media, and of course, the DICE Collective. My name's Rick. I'm joined here with Reina to interview one Danish Fitri. He's from the Diploma of Sequential Arts, and he's worked on Footprints, a second place winner in Clip Studio Paint's International Comic and Manga School Competition. Danish, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Danish Fitri. I am an artist based in Malaysia and an alumnus of Diploma in Sequential Art. I do various things like comics, concept art, and just simply regular illustrations.
Maybe to start off, you could give a short explanation in your own words what Footprints is about.
Footprints was just a short webcomic about the struggles and the lengths one would go through to reach their goal.
How was it like creating Footprints? Were there like any story or show that you took inspiration from?
So creating the comic was quite tricky at the start since I wasn't quite used to the long strip format. I was more familiar with the traditional page format. For the inspirations, I was inspired by a lot of the stories from various athletes of the sports that I follow. Those people are usually some of the most driven people out there.
Have you climbed a snowy mountain before?
No, unfortunately. Although I would like to do it one day.
How long was the production for Footprints like, from start to finish?
So because it was part of the class, before I started on the comic, I had to make a small pitch that the lecturer would approve of. After that, I would detail the rough premise of the comic or the character designs and a lot of the references that are needed. And the comic took a whole semester to finish, but that's mostly due to juggling multiple assignments at the same time.
How do you create the characters in your comic?
Usually I start with the defining traits of the characters, like for example, like what are their flaws, their strengths, what they want and what they need, and then after that I start thinking of the appearance.
Do you think the characters reflect your own life in any way?
Kind of. I've been in a similar situation where I was too obsessed with catching up to my peers and those that I idolize. I still am to a certain extent, but hopefully not to the point where it becomes counterproductive.
Do you think you have managed to push out this piece without all the things you picked up from DSA and all the help you've got from the lecturers?
Definitely not. Without the things I've learned, I probably wouldn't even know how to start a comic. The course has taught me a lot of the process of creating comics and how to find a writing style that works.
So what was your experience before joining DSA and now?
Before joining DSA, I had little to no experience in the visual arts. I had no knowledge of the fundamentals, but now I think I feel a bit more confident in drawing 3D forms. And while I still have more to improve, I'm able to draw more intricate environments and dynamic characters.
Since you were looking to get involved in the visual arts, what made you pick sequential arts over something like game art?
Well, I am actually very interested in game art, but I've always loved reading comics ever since I was little, so I think that's a big reason why I chose DSA.
What's your favorite genres in comics?
I have a lot, but it would probably be fantasy or psychological.
Any recommendation?
I would recommend Berserk, but that's kind of it's a bit of an adult. It explores a lot of the adult themes, so it may not be for everyone.
Since you've read so much in your own time, are you planning to make any new pieces in the coming future? Any new projects or works?
I do have a couple projects planned out. I am trying to create something a bit in a larger scale, but they are still in early development.
With the pandemic and COVID-19 going on, do you think it's impacted your flow of work in any way?
Definitely, because before the pandemic, I would usually just go to the studio and do my work there, and having a proper studio definitely allows you to get into a better mindset to do work.
Are there any physical challenges to the pandemic and producing artwork?
Uh, I'm not sure if it's counted as physical, but hardware is definitely one of them. Not having a bigger drawing tablet and not having a powerful enough computer does make it a bit slower.
So that being said, I guess you've used the campus's resources a lot when producing your work and making new pieces like this.
Yes, I relied on it a lot.
In your own opinion, does the style or the idea of the comic come first?
It's usually the idea of the comic first. Like I'll start with the script and then I'll move on with the drawings itself.
Are there any companies that you would like to work with? Like any dream company?
I don't really know many companies that work on comics, but in general, I would like to be good enough to work on projects for local studios like Metronomic or even internationals like Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, do you have any advice for aspiring comic artists out there?
I don't really have much wisdom to give since I'm still quite a newbie myself, but if I do have to say something, it would be to pace yourself carefully. Try not to overburden yourself too much, because that's how you get burnt out, and it's something very difficult to get out of.
Since you've worked on this, you've worked on Footprints alone as a solo creator. Do you think you have involved anyone if the opportunity was there?
Yeah, probably, because that would really help smoothen out the process and allows me to create a product faster.
If you were to graduate, would you continue working on your own projects or join a production house?
Depends. I think I would probably join a production house just to get more experience. But then later on, I would like to work on my own projects.
If you had more time to work on Footprints, is there anything you would add more to it or change?
I mean, looking back at it now, I think I would probably have fixed a lot of. I would have added a lot more detail into it and fixed some of the pacing.
Anything you have added to the story, or do you think that was well wrapped up?
I ended it just the way that I wanted to, but yeah, definitely I could have added certain bits and pieces that would enforce the themes.
Is there a particular comic artist that you look up to when making your own works?
I think there's just too many to name from, but I guess at the top of my head, I would say the manga artist Kamome Shirahama. That's probably one of my favorite comic artists at the moment.
Are you personally very familiar with his work?
Yeah, I've been following her work for quite a long time now. She's worked on multiple different projects.
In layman's term, maybe you could describe your own creative process when forming new ideas and thinking up of new stories like this.
Usually, my process varies depending on the kind of project it would be. Sometimes I would have to focus a bit more on the world building first, see if the plot relies on it. For this comic, it's mainly just I actually started exploring the character first, then place it on the plot itself.
I guess that's all the time we have. Thanks again, Danish, for coming by for this interview. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this year's Jingle Mingle, hosted by DICE. And once again, everything was organized with the help of the SCCM lecturers and all their resources, as well as my fellow students and colleagues.